Test. All right. All right. Try to go live just a second ago, but YouTube changed the microphone settings for some odd reason, or maybe my Windows, whatever the case may be. Um, I'm not going to be on here long. I'm going to be on here just a short. Um, we're going to be starting here at 7 o'clock, and we're going to wrap it up at 8 o'clock. So make sure that you can hear me. Now, I don't know if YouTube changed my settings again. If for some odd reason it's doing this weird. So let me know if my volume goes away or not. Because it looked like it changed again for some odd reason. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Let me know if you can hear me. So, hey Dia, what's going on? Let me know if you can hear me. Volume is good. Okay. As long as the volume is good, I'm going to continue on. Okay. So I want to talk about music and production because there's still I'm seeing a lot of comments where some people still believe that you can only do music in a commercial building. You can only do music in a commercial building. You have to have, a lot of people say Neve consoles or whatever, even though when I hear somebody say a Neve console, it's like, do you realize that there were over 50 different console makers? I mean, everything from Caddic to MCI to Audient to Helios to Harrison to you name it, SSL, API, Tascam. The list is huge when it comes to consoles, as well as the list is huge for outboard gear. But there are a lot of people that still believe that you can't make music unless you are in a commercial building. You have to have an analog console, lots of outboard gear in a control room. You have to have the live room and all that. I'm like, you do not. Yeah, it's great. Those commercial studios are great. I've been in them. I've been in quite a few of them. But you think about it, going back to the times where music was being recorded, where most music was bands. Most of the time when we go back to 60s, 70s and all that, we didn't have the modern type of synthesizers and digital synthesizers and VST and plugins and DAWs and all that. Everyone went to a recording studio and they had your typical drums, percussion, bass, guitar, piano, organ, horn section, lead singer, background singer. That was majority of what was most music. It was being, if you go back to the 70s, all the bands from Earth, Wind and Fire to you name it, the Doobie Brothers to rock and roll bands. I mean, it was bands. But as people started doing music production, especially in the 80s, going into the 90s, and they start using computers and sequencers on keyboards, 16-track sequencers on keyboards, allowed you to multi-track using, like mine, Sonic SQ1 Plus 32 voice over there it's a 16-track sequencer. I can sequence. It's got 25 different drum kits in it that came from in the board. 25 different drum kits. And no matter what key you hit, it was a kick, drum, snare, all that. I can program entire drum kit on track one, then I can record bass on another track, keys on another track, strings on another track, horns on another track. And as keyboards got better and they started doing audio and they start putting audio into DAWs. DAWs start really getting big in the 90s. And they can start doing audio recording and everything else. It just like people can multi-track and do audio. And then when they start doing plugins, which is basically outboard gear, and you can start implementing those plugins in your Pro Tools or your Logic, your Reaper, people stop, and more genres of music started coming up, more and more genres of music. Before it was just, it was only like 5 or 6 different genres. You had country, R&B, jazz, rock and roll. That was it. But now, they start getting electronic music, trap music, dubstep music, you name it, hip hop, all these different genres of music, and the different genres of music start using drum machines and samples and everything else. Is just, that's technology. It's like, well, you don't need to rent a recording studio if you're going to use an MPC. As like, I got my MPC in a Renaissance. You just don't need to go to. You can do all your full-fledged production, especially with the software, allows you to do that. So it's like, why would I rent a large, let's say, I'll say Sunset Sound in Los Angeles? Why would I rent that at $150 to $200 an hour to do something I can do at home in Pro Tools? And then with audio interfaces, and then so many clone companies, there's that allows you to, they're making clone of some of the best gear. There's a clone of it now. It's like, why would I need to spend $5,000 on a Neve 1073? I can get a Heritage Audio 1073 clone for about $1,000 versus $5,000. That's fifth of the cost, and get the same quality of preamp sound. That's what everyone's that's why everyone's doing it at home now. It's like, I can buy gear fraction of the cost and get the same quality. And that's what they're doing. There's a lot of people that argue that you're not gonna get the same quality because of the room sound. And like I said, yeah, if you still want the traditional room sound, if you want to spend $200, there's studios still open. I would say go to a commercial studio. If you want to spend, you think about it, $200 an hour. If you think about 5 hours, that's $1,000. So you think about it, and most recording sessions could take up to 3 or 4 days. A couple of thousand, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5. Before you know it, you might be in there, I don't know, a week, and now you just spend $5,000. Imagine what, and I get some people, I think they were writing comments where there are a lot of people that are trying to do this at home and have no experience. And so the records are not, or they're saying because of people are doing this at home, that that the quality is not going to be there. It's like a double-edged sword. If I don't know how to explain that, but it's kind of like, the one thing I'm going to say about this, because everyone's talking about AI technology right now. The one thing I want to say, if you want, the one thing that cannot be skipped is putting in an effort to become a solid musician or becoming a solid singer. Because when it comes, hey, what's going on, Vigilante? Welcome. Like I said, I'm doing a short live stream today because I'm working on this Christmas project right now, and I'm doing a lot of editing. But yes, you can AI, but if you think about it, someone use AI, think about it. Beyonce, I'm gonna use Beyonce. Let's say you created an AI of Beyonce singing. How are you going to go see that AI perform and actually interact with the concert and be able to shake hands with the audience and talk to the audience? And sometimes in a live show, the singer or the band or whatever, you might be doing something, they might want to change it up, and they might want to, y'all have seen shows where y'all hear the original record from the album, and then all of a sudden the band does all these, you might start, you can't do changes like that with AI, because AI is not a thinking program. It's just it's a substitute type of thing to do stuff for you, but AI doesn't know how to interact with the crowd. How y'all doing out there? How my people over there on the right doing? How my people on the left doing? welcome to the show, or whatever. AI can't do that. So, oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm being here for a short period of time. I have to cut it off because I got heavy. I got to get this project done. But I try because I missed it last week. I was just exhausted last week. And all I'm doing right now is I'm just making a live stream to talk about the video that I made about my reaction on why recording studios are closing. So, and so let's see what Vigilant said. I think major labels have been using AI for a while. Don't get me wrong. I think AI, like any technology, there's always pros and there's always cons. There's pros and cons to everything. There's pros and cons to plugins. One of the pros is you can buy, let's say you want a Pultec EQ, but you can't afford an $8,000 Pultec EQ. But if you buy a plugin, I don't care if it's Isotope, Sound Toys, Waves, I don't care what company it is. One thing about it, if you buy that plugin, you can use it on as many channels in your DAW as you want. It's like if you want to use that Pultec EQ, 20 different channels, it's like you bought 20 different plugins or 20 different pieces of outboard gear. The downside to software is it's limited to the operating system, is limited to your computer, PC or Mac's ability to process that plugin. And if your computer can't handle, like if you only got a computer with 8 gigs of RAM or whatever, it might not be you're not going to hear the benefits of that plugin if you got a low powered PC or Mac. You got to have an extremely powerful PC or Mac because plugins can be processor heavy. That can be one of the downsides, or it can become outdated because it's not compatible with the upgrade. And everyone knows Mac and Windows are always upgrading, or the DAW might upgrade, and now the plugin is not used because it's a certain version plugin. So that's always the downside versus a real piece of gear. You can use a 1176 that was made in 1981 or whatever, and it's still going, if it's maintained well, it's still going to operate. You can insert that in your actual analog console and actually get that real compressor. So that's the pro to having real gear. I'll say this: some people say, well, some people may argue with real gear. The downside to real gear is that you need a lot of it if you got a lot of stuff going on. And that's the reason why you would see a lot of gear in a lot of these recording studios. They would have like 6 1176s because they needed that many. Like me, I got a lot of compressors in my racks. I got a lot of compressors. I also got a lot of EQs. But I come from the old school. I started that way. Well, I actually kind of started the old school hybrid way. I started with, even though I started in working in DAW, because I started in Cakewalk. The studio I started in, we didn't have a lot of outboard gear. We just didn't. But the thing is, I was using mostly keyboard patch sounds, and most of those keyboard patch sounds don't require a lot of processing. So you don't really need a lot of compressors and EQs and all that. But if you were working with orchestras and bands and all that, you probably did need a lot of that, because analog recording, such as instruments and horns and sax, tend to need some peak compression or limiting. Let me see. Deal said, how do we increase our music related income? If you're not making money, why buy equipment? People take their music income and buy equipment because they can write off income. Well, I'm gonna say this. The old system up until the early 2000s, where everyone was buying music, that's how people can generate. I mean, talking all the way up to the labels. I'm gonna say in today's world, even with everyone that's streaming on Spotify and all the streaming services and all that, you really, if your thing is about making income with this, it ain't gonna happen. It just it isn't. You the only way anyone can make any money, like say for example, if you were an artist, I would not make, and most artists aren't making their money off the music. They're making their money off of selling like personalized merchandise. Um, you can have Beyonce's more likely to make more money selling her perfume brand and so forth. Just the same thing with Jay-Z made most of his money not from the music and all that, and the rap artists and all that on his Rockefeller label. He was making a lot more money from Rockefeller and selling Rockefeller stuff. Him and Damian Dash, they were co-partners in Rockefeller. Um, so that's where you were making your money is through merchandise. Rihanna's selling a lot of money through her perfume brand. So I would not, and today is being 2024 going on 2025, I would not think about, any revenues unless you're gonna, as far as tax write and all that, anything that if you got like anything is when it deals with tax forms and all that and 1099 forms and all that, if you're selling merchandise, hats, t-shirts or whatever, you still want to keep an inventory log and all your purchases and all that, so that way you can still do your tax write-offs that way. So let me see. Vigilante says technically, as long as you have a stereo, you can bust stuff out of your DAW into a stereo. Yeah, you can. I mean, that's what you're hearing coming out of your audio interface. The 2-channel output is your master bus. Some people run into a summing mixer and then they use some outboard gear. Some people will use, if their audio interface have multiple outputs, sends and returns, they can send and return gear through their interface and use external outboard gear. Me, I have a patch bay, and so all my gear is patched through the patch bay, and that's how I'm implementing all my gears through the patch bay, because every piece of gear in my racks is connected to the patch bay. So all I got to do is patch it in. It's a couple of cables done. It's there. Also, Eventually says Spotify is selling physical and talking about merchandise, physical merch. Yeah, like anything else. That's why you see a lot of people that'll sell t-shirts, hats, anything, any type of merch that you can, because people always like to buy t-shirts and hats and stuff like that. So that's one way to make money. But making money off of music, that's pretty much died, other than people buying concert tickets for touring and going seeing these artists perform on stage. But touring is expensive because of the travel. You go from one city to another. You gotta, how you getting there? You still gotta book hotel rooms. You still gotta eat. You gotta get security. You gotta get the band. If the band's traveling with you, hiring a sound man, a lighting room. That's got to be done in every city. Sometimes you have a road manager and an artist manager that's coordinating all that, and they're coordinating with a booking agent to book venues for these artists. So, let me see. Vigilante says, how do you market through, though, in a sea of millions of artists? It's, that's what a lot of, I was just watching quite a few videos, and we're talking about, Neo was discussing this along with Akon and quite a few artists. A lot of artists were saying that because there's no more gatekeepers, meaning traditional getting a record contract, signing with a label, and getting on radio and making a music video and getting your stuff in record stores through distribution and everything else. That was the old way. Because of the internet, everyone putting their stuff on SoundCloud and Reverb Nation and everything else. You got millions. It's one of those hit or miss. Sometimes people's videos can go viral where enough people can see artists. YouTube, there's Twitch, there's so many platforms that can allow people to go viral, that might be enough to get people to get noticed. But it's hard because the problem is, this is what they're saying about, a lot of people are complaining about the talent, which I want to talk about I want to talk about a music theory class is what I want to start talking about. I want to get through, I'm going to start finishing I got about 6-7 more videos on audio engineering that I got to make. Just trying to get through the holidays because Christmas is coming up. Then I want to start and actually start doing, I'm going to get back into my music teaching actual work, because everyone knows out of all this, the biggest thing that I'm good at is I'm a musician. Out of everything, I'm a keyboardist. Out of everything, that's my number one thing that I do. I'm a musician. So I want to get back into music teaching, but to throw a little theory out there, what you're hearing in a lot of music is this common thing called a 1-5-6-4 progression. It's being used in thousands of songs. So the problem with that is everyone using that same 1-5-6-4 progression or a combination of that. Music has become uninteresting because people aren't doing interesting things. I'll throw one example. If you listen to another song, like if you go back and listen to Overjoy, or yeah, dun, 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 dun. I'm thinking of Stevie Wonder. How you go, over time I've been spinning. That song has no traditional 1-5-4-3, and there's lots of songs like that that don't do that 1-5-6-4 progression. That's what's going to make your music interesting. We got to get back into making music interesting instead of being safe. I'm just going to make, I don't care if it's slow or fast. And I have to do a video demonstration of what I mean by this. What's the problem with the 1-5-6-4 progression songwriting? It is very problematic. So let me see. I got Kicks and Beats. Welcome, Kicks and Beats. But let me get back to, before I read Kicks and Beats statement. Let me see. Vigilante said maybe touring if you can get popular enough. Like I said, yes, if you can't get popular enough to do the touring, but like I said, you got to have a lot of money to tour because it's expensive. That's why artists were getting set back with touring support through their labels, because it's expensive to travel, to go from Los Angeles to New York, Detroit to Miami, then overseas to Japan, then you maybe the Netherlands or whatever, then you're New York and Chicago and Houston and Dallas. It's expensive, very, very expensive. So touring support, but that was what was killing artists in their payback debts to their label, because they had to also pay back the touring support as well as everything else recoupable other than the advance for recording and everything else. But Kicks and Beats, welcome. He said, I have a question if you don't mind. A major artist is asking me to send more instrumentals after I sent 14. Any recommendations? This is my first actual possible opportunity. I'm gonna tell you right now, Kicks and Beats, if they don't need it, if you sent them 14, which is probably 11 too many, and they want more, let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you, I would not do that. And I'm gonna tell you why I would not do that. Because you gotta remember, people can steal your music without necessarily stealing your music. And I'll give you an example. If you sent me, let's say you sent me a, I don't know, I don't got no music in here. You're not gonna be here. Well, I was gonna throw in a little example. I can still steal the idea from that and still make it like something that I'm listening to. Go back, I can restructure to make it my own original, even though it wasn't my original. And I'm like, well, I like what they did. Let me twist it a little bit. Music is funny when it comes to, as long as I'm not stealing, because here's the thing with when it comes to copyright. This is why a copyright. This is what artists did not know they were giving up when they sign a record deal. If you create something, you are the copyright owner of that creation. This is the reason why record labels wanted you to give up your master, or 15. They want to give you up 100% of your copyright ownership, and they would only in exchange give you 15% of that. That's why they were 12% or whatever. But if I steal the idea, because one thing about this is the reason why you can buy a keyboard or guitar or an instrument or whatever, the sounds that those instruments make, all the patches cannot be copyrighted, because sounds cannot be copywritten. Drum sounds, bass guitar sounds cannot be copywritten. Only thing that can be copyright is the composition, which is the melody, the song idea. So people they can steal, they can reconstruct that. But I'm saying like this, and some people may not agree. If 14 songs is not good enough, I don't see what the problem is. Most of the time, if you're writing good songs, there ought to be, out of those 14 songs, it should be 2 or 3 songs that caught me. If you send me 14 songs, I like any of the 14 songs, it's probably, they might not be liking your song ideas. So I would, you got to be real careful, because, and I'm not saying me, I'm more honest when it comes to, I'm really, really honest when it comes to dealing with music. I don't like stealing people like that, but there are people out there that will sit there. Here's one last example. Beyonce, I don't know if you remember Beyonce, and I don't know if you remember Amarie. Amarie, she made that song, if this one thing, it's the one thing, and it was a go-go beat. Go-go, everyone knows DC is known for the go-go beat style of music. That is go-go type of style, right? Beyonce comes out with a song, because the same songwriters that were writing some of the songs for Beyonce also were writing for Amarie. Now all of a sudden Beyonce comes out with a song that sounds really, really similar but different, where it sounded it didn't sound like one thing, but it had the same concept, because the guy was listening to It's That One Thing. And so now all of a sudden, this is when Beyonce was actually starting to go really get into her solo career, when she broke away from Destiny's Child. And a lot of people think when they see all these artists, you got to remember these artists, Destiny's, whether it's Destiny's Child, Beyonce, whether it's Amarie, or it could be Shakira, it could be whoever these artists are, most of them are not creating music. You got people like me that's creating music. And sometimes we can get an idea. Oh man, let me create something. I got an idea off of someone else's idea. So you got to be careful when sending your music in like that. So I know there's a long answer. So I just want to just protect yourself before you know it. You did send something, and wait a minute, that sounds like something I did, and there's nothing you can do about it. So Spawn, welcome. It says salute. We got to salute the military, right? Everyone knows Army. Thanks. The man said this conversation is why I enjoy. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm out here. I made a video a long time ago on the real truth about the music industry, and I wish it got 40,000 views. I wish I hadn't deleted it. I wish I had kept it up. I think people kept getting mad. Quit deleting my videos. I was deleting my videos because I don't know. So I had to say to myself, I had to stop deleting my videos. So, sponsor. Oh yeah, wow, yeah, that's why. Yeah, exactly. You think about this. For example, you see lots of artists. I don't care who it is. Madonna, Michael Jackson, Janet. Think about it. The same guys creating music for Janet was the same guys creating music for Midnight Star, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. But there was also a lot of Al B. Shore, Chucky Booker, Dallas Austin, Jermaine Dupri, but there's probably lots and lots. Everyone knows about Teddy Riley. But there's so many, and I'm not just talking about the black producers. There's a lot of white producers, songwriters, musicians, songwriters, and all that. These people are writing for all, and it's the actually 10,000 of artists, but it's only like 1,000 producers. Like you think about Quincy, think about how many artists Quincy Jones, rest in peace, was doing for so many artists. So, there's beat, just like everyone knows about the same. Everyone's seen the infamous Cat Williams and the joke stealing and how he was all the thing in the shade in the comedy world. What happens in the music world as well? There's beefs and all that. Rappers beefing with other rappers or bands beefing with other bands, and people think it's just beefs between rappers. No, you got country and western bands that beef with each other. They don't like each other. You have and some of these fall off the map or whatever because they get into with their record labels, and it's just the list just goes on. It's crazy. But let me see. Deal said, yeah, they can steal the feel or groove from a record. Copyright is for that's the reason why. And I'm gonna say, you got to be careful because it was really, really with blurred lines. Blur. Yeah, y'all remember the song Blurred Lines? That's the one with Pharrell and Robin Thicke. The thing is, they were because Marvin Gaye has been passed. He died in '84. Rest in peace. But the publishing companies never really go away. And there's a song called I Like to Party. Feel that whole feel idea is the reason why they actually won. And I'm like, Blurred Lines, if you really listen to Blurred Lines, it sounds nothing like the Marvin Gaye song. But the feel is how they, but the most infamous one was with that ruined was Vanilla Ice. Because he took that song, they used the same guitar, like ding 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 ding. This is the very reason why sampling, you have to be really, really careful when it comes to sampling someone else's music, because you just don't know how much they can come after you. These publishing companies and these performance right organizations, they're listening. So let me see. Got some more questions. I'll see some more. We have to do just to change it a note in the song, and that's it. No, you got to do because you got to make sure it can't sound like the melody. It cannot. You got to do. Sometimes you got to do a lot more to that. You have to, for example, so if I change the note, all I did was change one note. It still sounds like Billie Jean. So just because of that little that's copywritten. Has nothing to do with the actual bass. If you're using a precision bass guitar in the recording, the melody structure of that bass line is what's copywritten. That's why you can't copyright the Billie Jean bass line. Say, I just came across Jay Styles' studio last. I'm not sure who Jay Styles is. Let me see. So how did you get started selling music, and how did you get your first artist client? Okay, for me, I'll give you a quick breakdown of how I got started right quick. I'll try to be as quick as possible. In '93, I was playing with this band, and we got hooked up, and it was I forget her name. I can't remember her name. She was an entrepreneur, and we went up to a city called Waco, Texas. Everyone knows Waco, Texas, known for the they had a High Five is out of Waco, Texas. And so there was some girls, and it was a producer. His name was Grover, and he had these girls. He created this girl group, and so I was playing the band, and we're getting ready for a show, and he gave us the music. And when he gave us the music, I would listen to music, and I could tell the ideas that he wanted, but I was like, I feel as a keyboard player, I can do this better. So I asked him if I could go back and redo some of the music for him to make it a little bit more, because I was being a keyboard player, and he agreed. And he was really impressed from what I did. And from there, he brought me on I got into the studio and I started doing the music for him on the production team. And that's how I got it started. The name of the group is called A Different Taste. You can Google and YouTube search this girl group even today. They're called A Different Taste. And so to make a long story short, we end up recording the album and it got picked up and it started playing on radio stations, and the rest is history. But that's how I got started with clients. And then, of course, having going back full time in the Army and all that, I would just meet people. I would meet artists through my church that I'm playing at, or, because they're singing on praise teams. And I would approach them and say if they're interested in doing some recording or whatever the case. And that's how I would meet people and so forth. And, the networking and then playing in bands. And so you just network and meet people. And this has been going on probably over the course of the last 35 years. So that's how I got started. And because when I retired from the Army and I went full-fledged with my own recording studio in my home, I still meet artists even to this day. I meet people even through my YouTube channel. But I'm just real selective on my YouTube channel because I got to make sure, because remember, people, this is still my house. I live here. So I don't want anyone just coming here because I live here. And I just got finished watching a video the other day about this guy, how these people were getting robbed in their studio. I'm like, y'all can't be. I understand you're trying to make your recording studio business, but you got to use some. Not everyone is coming to your studio with good intentions. Some people, they're out there, they know that, some people, oh man, he got some nice microphone, or he got some nice preamps. That's just how people are. Even these commercial studios, they've had gear come up missing. Even to this day, even though they got insurance, expensive microphones, $20,000 Telefunkens have come up missing because some of the bands in there slipped one of those Telefunkens microphones in a bag when they left the studio, and of course the band don't come back. This is the reason why most recording studios keep their mics out of all the gear. They keep their mics locked up because that's one of the things. A microphone is small. You can steal a microphone. So yeah, the people steal gear. They ain't like you walking out of that. You're not walking out that studio with like a piece of rack gear, or you're not walking out with the console. You're definitely not walking out with like an SSL console, because SSL console weighs about 2,000 pounds. You ain't walking out one of them. But you can steal a microphone. That's some 57. And people do it all the time. So Maine said it's the melody. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like anything else. If I go, that's what's copywritten, not the actual whistle. You can't copyright a sound. You can copyright the melody, because the melody is a composition, which is pay. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with copyright, and this is how record labels. This is why they say own the masters and everything else, and the copyrights and everything else. Simply because when you sign a record contract, all you're doing is giving up your copyright. Your copyright, because if you write something, you own it. Well, how do they do it? They write up a contract to say give up ownership. You own 100% of that ownership. Well, I'll tell you what, if you sign this contract, you give up 100% ownership of that song that you're writing. In exchange, we'll give you 12% of it. That's where they come with the point system. So that's why every time you write in your contract, every song that you write or every song that you record, you give up that much percentage of the right because you own it, but you're the sign. Your contract says even though you own it, I'm giving up my ownership. That's how they do it in those contracts, because whoever owns the copyright owns the music. Like for example, if I write a song, which is a song idea, composition, a song idea, now the song being recorded in the studio is a song arrangement interpretation idea of the song. So a lot of times people say, well, I'm listening to the song. Well, you're listening to the musical arrangement of the song. That's why they can come up with different versions of the same song. So you have to that's why it's sound writing versus an SR form versus a PA form in songwriting. But I need to do a video on that, totally different, because that can get into an hour-long subject. And this is the reason why artists would get screwed on their copyrights on their ownership, especially when it comes to publishing, because if you own publishing and for example, there's so many rights. If I own this song, I can license these songs that I own out. Well, the record label's like, well, you don't own a song. We own the song. We can license it out and make the money. And we're only going to pay you a percentage of it. So that's why this is such a brilliant scam that record labels have been doing for years. That's why more and more people become more and more independent to avoid being screwed over. And it's like, if I own 100% of the rights, then you ain't paying me 12% of that. Okay. Adil says, let me see. Needy Beats have been suing people for making beats that sound like he is, like the stuff that he did for Young Jock. Yeah, like I said, you got to be careful, because there are a lot of people that are copying other people's styles. That's like me. When I do my music, I'm 100% original. So that way I ain't got to worry about, as long as that my stuff is 100% original, I don't have to worry about being sued because I own it. It's my original material. Yeah, Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. You got going back to say Ray Charles is one of the few that own his master. You got to remember Mariah Carey. She also owned her masters. You have to remember when you got a lot of artists that are trying to get a record deal, and these record labels, I don't care if it's Arista, Jive, RCA, MCA, doesn't matter, Capitol, they all sign contracts that's going to benefit the record label. And most of the time, they sign it. These videos on these contracts, these recording contracts. They always going to make sure they do it in a way that benefits, that they can get the most out of making the most money for themselves. Most artists, the only way most artists would only way they can make money was to tour, because the record labels can't really profit off the tour. But that's why you still see artists to this day that maybe they probably were in their prime. Like I'll use Freddie Jackson as an example. Freddie Jackson still has to tour if Freddie Jackson wants to still live in that nice big home, because Freddie Jackson, he didn't write none of his material, and because his record contract when he was with a record label, he didn't make any money, so he has to still make tour off of his name and legacy. He wasn't the only one. Luther Vandross, when he was alive, and so many artists, it's thousands that signed a contract where they didn't own the masters to the recordings, and they did not own the copyright ownership of the copyrights. So their money only came from touring. And this is what sucked about signing to a record label. Yep. They said those two guys from Harlem that made the beat that Louisiana Bounce music is based on has sued a bunch of labels because people are making drum groups like theirs. And like I said, it's not the drum sound that can be copywritten. It's the drums, melodies, compositions, and all. That's what can be copyrighted. It's kind of like if you listen to like the show that Teddy Riley did for Dougie Fresh. So if you listen to the show, that's copywritten, not the actual drums. So, but yeah, going back to what I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I'm like I said, I got to end it here in 15 minutes, is the technology that I was talking about. And what I was leading to is on the home recording studio compared to commercial studios. And it's always going to be a difference in opinion and people's creative space. And some people feel that they may be more creative going to a commercial studio, which is perfectly fine. They like being in there. You know, some commercial studios have an actual analog console. Some people don't. Some people, you know, just every commercial studio is different. Some have a lot of outboard gear. Some people don't. Some people have different varieties of outboard gear, different microphones. The live room, you know, you got a vocal booth in there, or whatever the case, drum booth, piano booth. Some people love that environment. They walk in there and they see all the artists, the gold, maybe the gold or platinum albums on the wall, and all that environment. For me, which I've been in those studios, and some people feel they don't feel they may be inspired to be in a home. For me, what I love about being in my home recording studio is even at 2:00 in the morning, if I got a song idea, I don't have to get up, jump in my car, travel across, even if I have the studio booked. I don't have to jump in my car, travel to the recording studio. Let me quit hitting that because I know it's hitting the microphone. I don't have to jump in my car. I can walk upstairs, walk in here, or I can do it downstairs. Everyone knows I got a couple of setups down. I can do it down there, downstairs. I'm already in my studio because my studio's in my home, so I'm already at my studio. I got an idea. Not everyone works like that, but for me, it works like that. For me, so that's just me. Chris has asked me, hey, I've been building my home studio for a few years. The last few months, I've been researching audio controller for my speakers, and I came across Dangerous Source. You think that's good? Dangerous is a really good company. I know Personas. They had the also Personas. They had a speaker controller. Dangerous as well. They're well known for their bus compressor and their bus channels, their summing channels and all that. So they're a really good company. I wouldn't for me, I don't feel the need to spend that. Believe it or not, I'm gonna tell you, believe it or not, I'll tell you how I do this. Y'all see I got 3 sets of speakers. And I got a sub in the corner. But I got 3 sets of speakers. You know how I switch between the 3 to listen to the 3 different speakers? And it's really, 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 really simple. Down here, I have a patch bay. And so the output of the console is going to that patch bay. And so all I do, and every speaker, all the speakers are connected to that patch bay. So all I got to do is take the 2 cables. If I want to listen to these middle speakers, I just plug in to my patch bay. Now I can listen to the middle speakers. If I want to listen to the JBLs next to it, I just move the cables over to that. Now I can listen to the JBLs. If I wanted to listen to the Truce, which is on the ends, I just move the cable, those 2 cables there, but now I'm listening to the Truce. That's how I do it. Patch bay costs $100. Cables cost $20. Really, really simple. That's how I'm doing it. So, you can do it like that, or you can spend on. I know there was forget what Personas, and there's quite a few. Behringer has one. Personas. There's quite a few media monitor controllers like that. Studio monitor controllers like that. But for me, every one of my speakers is plugged to the back of that patch bay, and all I gotta do is switch the cables so I can listen to from the console. I just switch them over, and now I can listen to those. If I don't want to listen to those, I listen to those. I just move the cables. And believe it or not, some studios do that. They do it in their patch bay in their patch bay system. They'll have monitors A, monitor B, monitor C, and then it's not like an SSL or a Neve console where they have you can flip a switch and go monitor A, monitor B, monitor C on an SSL console as an example, and all the speakers are plugged to the console. Just like my Behringer MX8000 downstairs, I have two sets of speakers, and both sets of speakers are plugged into the console because it's set like that. But this console just has the outputs like there's a little different, so you can't really necessarily do it like that. So that's why I have the patch bay to do that. I wish it was like the console downstairs where I can just plug all my speakers in there and I can just monitor A, monitor B, monitor C. That's a great thing about like having an SSL console or whatever. So I just want to throw that out. Last 10 minutes, but yeah, I was talking about technology. They're going to be, like I said, I was going to say, people are going to argue that personally for me, I love outboard gear. I love working on the console. I love the sonics of work this console, but software and technology give you so many advantages that there's just things you can do with software and plugins and everything that just it's got a lot more advantages. Like with a DAW got 10 times more capabilities in editing over just a typical 2-inch tape machine. Tape machines sound great, but you just can't edit like you can in a DAW. And so people have adapted to a really nice audio interface. I don't, whether it's a bird, like me, I got an antelope. I also got mark of the unicorns, Motus. People just, with great audio interfaces and a DAW is just like a lot of people, when you start working in your DAW and editing, a lot of people just don't miss tape. That's one of the first things that a lot of studios gotten rid of is tape machines. Or they just tape machines sitting in a closet collecting dust because they're just not using them. And the only other thing that people are really starting to get rid of is actual consoles, because this is like, even though it's a mixing console, mixing board, it's a desk, it's really 48 channels of preamps and EQs. That's really what it really is. They're just, everything's being ran through it to mix everything into one master output, master bus. But some people don't need to do that because they're using the master bus from the audio interface. And they're just using the mixer in the DAW. I'm just going to use the mixer there. Some people prefer to do it that way. There's, so because you're still listening technically to the audio interface for recording everything else. So, but I just love the sonic character of this console that's out on the heath. It sounds good. It really does. Let me see. One more. Let me see. Persona's audio controller good. The reviews say over the years it will malfunction. I think you talking about, the Persona studio. I forget what it's in my. I'm drawing a blank on what it's called. Personas. Let me tell you one thing. I've had quite a few Personas. I really stopped buying Persona stuff because the stuff tend to break and discontinue their stuff. And you would think, the sad part is I got Behringer gear that lasts longer than a lot of Personas gear. And it don't make sense, so on Main City Studio Live, no, not the mixer. Now I'm gonna draw I gotta look it up because I'm gonna probably drive myself crazy if I don't remember what this Personas. It's like a Personas. PreSonus monitor. Yeah, the PreSonus monitor station. Yeah, it was called the PreSonus Central Station. That's one. The PreSonus Central Station, monitor station. But there's M Audio has a monitor control. Universal Audio has a studio monitor control. There's a lot of companies that got one that you can switch between the two. But I got to thinking about it, it's like, why not need to spend $300, $400, $500 on a monitor control? I can all my cables that are going to all my studio monitors are running to the back of that patch bay, and then the output from that I want to listen to studio monitors A, I just plug into monitors A. Want to listen to monitor B, I just move on to monitor B. That's how it works for me. Not saying that's a right or the wrong way, but it works for me. But some people get something like the PreSonus Central Station. They'll use that and just push the button and switch between that too. You can do that too, or they can get the M Audio control or the universal monitor control and do it that way. So yeah, Chris said, for me, I'm looking for good quality equipment to last for a long time. And like I said, for me, it's hit or miss on most gear. It really is hit or miss on most gear, because SSL and Neves have broken. ATC speakers, $20,000 speakers, and a tweeter goes out. So you think about it, it's kind of like, well, I spent $20,000 on the ATC and the mids went out. That can kind of make you upset versus if I spent $300 on a set of Yamaha HS8s. Well, the tweeter goes on that. I didn't spend. I'm not really so upset because I didn't spend that kind of money. So it's kind of, you can kind of look at it like that. But it's hit or miss with gear. You just don't know. Some gear just break. Some gear lasts for long. Like for example, I'll use one last example, like my MX8000, that Behringer MX8000 mixer I got downstairs. It was built in 1995 in Germany. It's going on 30 years old. It still works. It still works. Just like this Allen Heath. I think this Allen Heath this is a GL3800 48 channel. I don't know, it's probably 2000. This was a $20,000 console when it came out. $20,000 console. Still works. It's on right now. You probably see the lights on. So it's hit or miss with gear. You just never know. I've seen expensive gear or I've seen cheap gear. All of it can break but the number one failure component in almost most electronics is capacitors. Electrical capacitors. They look like, if you open up a circuit board, they look like little mini water towers, the circuit. Those fail because they get hot and they start to leak, and then they fail, and before you know, if it deals with current, if they fail current, it won't, and before it won't turn on or whatever. Or if it deals with signal or whatever the case, but if those capacitors start to fail, the signals start to deteriorate and everything else. So that is the number one failure. And so last time, that's the reason why studios with large consoles or anything else, pieces of gear, that's why they usually tend to have that stuff recapped, meaning taking the old blown capacitors out and putting fresh capacitors. And a lot of times it brings it right back to life. That's the number one thing they do in recording studios, have stuff recapped, because they know those electrical capacitors, they fail. Versus a film or ceramic capacitor. They last a lot longer, but they're so much more expensive, and it costs manufacturers if they did with film and ceramic capacitors and got rid of electrical capacitors, everything that you would buy would be 10 times the amount. Neve preamp, which would be about $4,000, it'd be about $25,000 or whatever. Well, I'm exaggerating numbers, but I'm exaggerating numbers, probably wouldn't be that high, but it would be a lot more expensive because those capacitors or components are a lot more, they're expensive. So Seven Sun says, I like using hardware not only because of the sound, but I like using it because it's fun. That's my main reason, making music fun. I do too. I mean, I love plugins and software, but I just like touching real knobs. You know, it's like um, I got my I used to be crazy about Hillary Banks, even though she played it, she played the airhead daughter on Fresh Prince, but that was a gorgeous looking female, right? I got a picture of her. That's what plugins are. She's not real. She's not in this room. She's just a picture on my wall, right? That's like I can look at it and I got a picture of her, but I can't. She's not physically here. I can't actually physically touch her. That's like plugins compared to like a real piece of gear. But some people say, well, the picture's good enough. Sometimes you want the real thing. That's the way I can describe plugins. So let me see. I got a couple more. I got to end it because it's 8 o'clock. This is a short live stream. So I'm gonna read a couple more. So let me go back to someone said, oh, let me see. Maine says, I have a UA satellite which is FireWire connected. Can I use it because my iMac has no FireWire connection? Yeah, FireWire, because they went to Thunderbolt and they went to USB 3.0 and USB 2.0. So they eliminate FireWire, even though I thought FireWire, which is it's like the IEEE, which stands for, I forget it, Interactive Electronic Equipment, something, 1394 format plugin system, but software wasn't supporting a lot of FireWire, even though like with Macs and having a FireWire, you hook it up and it's like, I think it did the fastest transfer rate between FireWire, but then they went to Thunderbolt, but not everyone could do the FireWire. So they decided this, with 3.0, because you can do transfer data, a lot more data faster through 3.0 connection versus 2.0. And Thunderbolt can transfer, instead of kilobytes of data, you're talking megabytes, or even, it's ridiculous amount of data can be transferred through Thunderbolt. So Kern says he damaged equipment also when too close to each other in the rack. Yeah, I try to space some of it, especially if it's tube based, and things like that. Try to get some of it, especially if you got a piece of gear and it's got heat sinks and it's got the vents, and it's a piece of gear hot, you want to try to keep that, because that's what usually with electronics is the heat. That's what is, and it's cooking those electronics, and that's what burns a lot of out. And that's the weakest link in your electronics is capacitors, and the heat is what kills the capacitors, and the capacitors fail, and that's what kills the electronics. Before you know it, something doesn't work. There's no signal or doesn't want to turn on because you got failed capacitors. So, so that's what you got to be careful with electronics. So I want to continue this conversation next week. We're going to continue this conversation next week on technology, because I really want to get into the discussion of people's thoughts on technology. Do you prefer old school? Do you wish you went back to the actual analog console, tape machines, and just outboard gear, or do you love or like what we're doing with DAWs and plugins and more, and advances in software and doing stuff on a PC and a Mac, whether it's a laptop or it's a tower or whatever, and doing things with software? And do you like what we're doing with VST instruments and all that? Do you like this, what we're doing, or do you prefer old school, the old school commercial studio setup way? I want to talk about that and really get into depth with everyone we're going to do this live stream next week and really get into depth in that, because everyone has different views on it. But I'm going to wrap it up because I got to take care of some other stuff. So I'm going to end the live stream tonight. I will to be continued next week. And we're going to continue. So like I said, I always appreciate everyone that tunes in. You guys are great. And I love the interaction. So for those that are new, I pretty much do these live streams every Sunday. I didn't get a chance a couple of Sundays I missed. I usually do these live streams every Sunday. Try to, because I think it gives a chance to people to write in the chat and ask questions and do interaction other than always just posting comments on the videos that I post. So that's going to do it for this Sunday. I'm wrapping up pretty early, and we'll see y'all next week. And I appreciate everyone, and I hope everyone tunes in or able to tune in next week. Of course, around Christmas time, I'm going to take a little break with Christmas, let everyone enjoy their Christmas, because we're going to see this next year is going to be pretty interesting. We're going to see what's going to happen next year. I don't get into the politics, but we will see, because it's going to be interesting. All right. I appreciate everyone. And our thanks. And like I said, I'll be here next week. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate all of y'all. And for those that are, my military people like Spawn or whatever, everyone that's military, I give that salute. Airborne all the way. We'll see y'all next time.